Welcome to Refurbishing a Vintage Model Steamboat. This is how to fill the boiler quickly, a useful tip, mounting the radio control servos and connecting the servo to the gas shut-off valve. This first part is the useful tip. It's a real pain when first filling a steam engine's boiler that you have to either pump away for about 5 minutes and pump the water in a little bit at a time, or you can remove the safety valve, being very careful not to drop it in the bottom of the boat or worse still in the lake, and then fill the boiler using a small funnel. This is just a very good tip, and it's obvious if you think about it. The pumps that we use for model steam engines are simple lift pumps, and they have 2 stainless steel balls in them, one at the bottom and one at the top. So if you can inject some water under a small amount of pressure by using a bottle like this and squeezing it, it will first of all lift the first ball off the seat, then the second ball off the seat, and finally when the water meets the check valve or the clack valve on the boiler, that ball will lift and it will let a steady stream of water into the boiler, and it's a much quicker way of filling the boiler initially, not when the engine is in steam. I'm using a water bottle that you get from the supermarket, but really you need a bottle like this, a polythene squeezy bottle. Not the bottle that I demonstrated with. This is a much better one, but unfortunately it's full of oil and we don't want oil in the boiler. But a sort of a squeezy bottle onto the pipe will allow you to just put the water straight into the boiler. It's a good idea to open the outlet valve on the boiler so that you're not putting the water in the boiler against pressure, and it goes in very easily and very quickly shows on the water gauge glass, so you can get down to the serious business of steaming. If you remember on the last episode I painted the hull, and here it is now the paint's dried. It looks quite good. I might give it another coat yet, I'm not sure. I'll see how it pans out. I still have some repairs to do on the outside of the boat. The piece of metal that goes all the way around the edge in places has come away from the hull, so I need to repair this. It's a piece of metal painted to look like wood. I'll leave that for the moment though. What I'm going to do is remove this valve so I can get at the radio control servo part of the operation. Whilst I'm removing all the simple stuff, I'd just like to take this opportunity to say I'm a little bit worried about the radio control system, because modern 2.4 GHz systems do not take kindly to being put inside a metal hull. I've got a model submarine and it certainly does not work in a model submarine, so I think I might have to go to 40 MHz with an external aerial. If anybody knows something I don't, please inform me. But really, 2.4 GHz radio inside a completely enclosed metal hull is not going to give good reception, I wouldn't think. There is one option I have open, and that is on the stern part of the deck superstructure. There's a small wooden box. This is just glued to the deck, and if I was to cut out underneath this so I could put the receiver in a small wooden box, maybe that would be better. But once again, any radio control experts out there, please let me know. I've done plenty with model cars and model planes and with model boats, but my open launchers are very open, so there's nothing to get in the way of the radio signal. As you can see at the moment, I'm just piloting the holes for the screws for the servos and making sure that the screws that I fit are not over tightened, and cleaning the work up before I finally fit the servos. I've just shown in the previous clip the wiring arrangement. It's very important not to trap the wires from the servos against the wooden mountings, so there's a groove that lets the wire come through without any stress. And it's also very important never to over tighten the screws that hold the servos in place. If you do that, then the servo will be very rigidly mounted, and the plan is that the grommets are there to absorb vibrations from the engine. It's not a massive problem, of course, on a steam engine. It is on an internal combustion engine though. But the same rules do apply. The screws must not be over tightened. The servos are all quite close together. Some are upside down and some are the right way up. This is the rudder control servo being screwed into place. And this is the servo that controls the gas shut-off valve. This is a really important piece of kit, particularly in an enclosed boat. The last thing we want is a Viking funeral, so it's essential that this is connected properly and everything works fine. I could use collets on the end of a piece of bent metal, but I prefer to do it like this. It's more permanent and cannot work loose. This is a special tool that puts a kink in the metal like this. I'm actually using a piece of brass rod on the finished part, because I do not want it to rust. I was only using the steel to demonstrate this clever tool that puts the kink in the end of the steel. I wrapped some masking tape around all the cables to keep them together because I don't want them dangling in the bottom of the boat. This will keep them clean and stop them getting in the way. This is the radio control servo that controls the rudder of the boat, and I'm using a slightly thicker rod to push and pull the rudder bar. So I'm not using the tool that puts the kink in the metal because it's a little bit too clumsy for the servo horn. What I'm doing instead is using a right angle bend in the rod, and I've made a collet with a grub screw that I'm now fastening in place, and this will hold the rod to the servo horn. To be honest, it's totally overkill. The rod cannot fall out of the servo horn because of the bar that goes across the boat. But I do like a belt and braces approach, particularly on the steering. It's never a good thing if your boat is careering out of control all over the lake, and it's also not a good thing if the emergency gas shutoff valve has failed and it's on fire, because cremating swans is definitely not allowed in this country. That's it for now. Thanks for watching. I hope you found it useful.